Welcome to another episode of the Empowered Half Hour. I'm always excited to share my guests, but today's guest I am super excited to share. I have with me Therese Gopaul Robinson, and I met her in my speaking adventures. We both spoke recently at the Speak Up Women conference, and we got to explore a little bit about each other when we were doing like our intros and welcome behind the scenes. And then we got to see each other speak, and we were kind of just like, hey, girl. I like what you do. So, Therese, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Becca. I'm so excited. I have been waiting for this. So super
I,
excited.
I love that. Well, I cannot wait to dive into your story. But first, let me read your bio so that the audience can get to know you a little bit better professionally. All right, here we go. Therese helps staffing companies improve back office productivity by streamlining processes, creating robust internal training programs, and focusing on employee well being and experience. She provides on demand training and support to healthcare leaders as she tackles complicated and sticky situations. I heard what she does in our behind the scenes a few months ago, and it's pretty incredible. So stay tuned. So, I also want to share that Therese has a master in public health, specializing in health promotion and disease prevention from Florida International University. She has 20 plus years. I know my daughter wants to go to FIU too. She has 20 plus years of experience serving in different roles in hospitals and healthcare staffing organizations. She put all that education and experience to work to help her clients quickly identify the root cause of their issues, prioritize, create an action plan, and strategically execute to start seeing quick organizational wins. Wow, you are a busy and
That's a lot.
motivated woman. Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. So, well, let's get to this interview. The first question I want to ask you is, what's your backstory? How did you become the Therese you are today and break away and start your own business so you can help companies from a different perspective? I'm super curious to dive in.
Yeah, so I always respond with, okay, so I can give you my origin story and then I'll give you my new beginning story. So my origin story is essentially that I knew I wanted to be in healthcare since I was like a kid, like at 10 years old. And that's because of the fact that when I was 10, I'm aging myself. This was in the 80s. When I was 10, there was this thing called AIDS that was a thing all of a sudden. And it was scary and I'd heard about it, didn't quite understand what it was. But what I knew was that my uncle had it. And
Oh,
the experience that I went through with him, first of all, not being able to see him anymore and hearing about the treatment that he received because he was being treated by people who were afraid of him. And so, at a very young age, I understood that everyone deserved to be cared for with compassion and respect. And so that was kind of the beginning for me. And then fast forward, I was hired into my first healthcare role right out of the mall. I was not qualified for it, not even a little bit. But my first boss, she said she saw something in me and took me under her wing and groomed me. And then 20 years passed. I had several different roles in healthcare. And then that was kind of my beginning and my growth. And what I'll tell you, Becca, is, and you can't put all of that in a biography, but I will say that with all of the accolades I received, my education, my experience, I still struggled with believing that I belonged where I was, that I deserved the roles that I received, that I could be confident enough to really speak my mind and those sorts of things. And so I struggled with that. And in January of 2021, all of the things that I thought about myself and all of those fears of being found out and someone finally saying, hey, Therese, you don't belong here. You don't deserve to be here. Well, that happened in January of 2021. And I
wow.
was fired on the same day that I was going to be asking for a promotion. Like I'd had my deck ready, presentation ready, and started, and they terminated me instead. And that was the new beginning, truly, for me. At that point, as you can imagine, right, there's all these fears. You have kids, you have a mortgage, you have me, four dogs. How's everyone going to eat? That sort of thing. And it was a struggle initially. But at that, I would say at that moment, but I would say a couple weeks in, after all the tears and all the wine, I came to that conclusion that I didn't want to work for someone anymore. And at that point, that's what gave birth to my new beginning. And I will tell you, I had no idea what that looked like. I had no idea what I wanted to give to others, but I just knew that there was just so much more for me and so much more that I wanted to do. But I knew that I did not want to work for someone else anymore.
There are so many things in your story that I could literally grab onto, and we could probably talk for like 2 hours. But there is something that you said that I think is really relevant to the listeners and things that they may be experiencing right now that I'd like to expand upon a little bit. So you had mentioned that in 2021 you were let go and you were going to ask for a promotion. So wow, like talk about the irony, right?
Yeah,
But there are a lot of people in today's environment that have recently been laid off.
yeah,
And I'm always one that's like, there is unlimited possibilities, and you also have unlimited potential.
yeah,
And you have to overcome the fear of the unknown, or at least maybe not overcome it, but be willing to embrace it so that you can create this new beginning and that you can lean into your potential. So I would love for you to expand upon kind of like the magic and the unfolding that's happened for you so maybe that another listener could do it too.
yeah. So I always start off by saying again, I had no idea what I wanted to do and I had no idea how to get there. I just knew that I wanted something different and I wanted something better and I wanted to stop feeling the way that I did. And so for
Mhm.
me, my journey kind of looked like this. I started picking up the phone and making phone calls to people that I'd worked with in the past. And I was feeling very vulnerable. And in some situations, I expressed that. And so that's really where it started is me just picking up the phone and saying, hey, really enjoyed working with you. Would love an opportunity to work with you before. Oh, and by the way, what do you think I'm good at? Because I'm trying to figure that out. And the response was just really overwhelming. And the other thing, which is interesting about, and I'm sure you know this as doing the things that you do, is you have to be your own champion. And I don't think I ever was really that until now. And that's because being a business owner forces you to be the expert, forces you to
Mhm. Sure
say, I am
does.
great at this, I can do these things. And that goes directly against all of the things that I was feeling over those years, right? They call it imposter syndrome, but that saying that you are the answer, you're the expert, you're great is the complete opposite of what you feel like as an imposter. So I didn't feel all those things, but I recognized that I needed to be all those things in order to actually have a business. And with time, I started actually believing those words that I was saying and just really seeing the feedback that I was getting. It just, every time I got incredible testimonials or I got a phone call from someone saying, hey, I heard about you, it was always this like, what? Me? Are you sure?
Are you
Um,
sure?
are you sure? Like, and so it took some time for me to really get it and see my value. It is a work in progress though, Becca. I mean, it's something that I work
Sure
on every
is.
single day.
Me
So
too.
I'm not going to say that it's just like, boom, it happens, but it's something that I work on every single day. And there's certain things that I do. And the first thing I do is I always try to look at the facts. So what are the facts telling me versus what the mean girl in my head
Those
is telling
yeah.
me?
Like,
Yeah.
I think we could be our own worst critics. Sometimes the
Oh,
thoughts that
yes.
roll through my head, I'm
Yeah.
like, "Who are you right now?"
Exactly. I joke around and I say, uh-oh, wait, she's at it again. I got to put a muzzle on her today because she's not being nice today, kind of thing. But you have to look at the facts versus what's in your head. And honestly, Becca, it's just about work ethic and being passionate for what you do. And once you have the work ethic plus the passion, you draw the right people to you
You are
always.
so speaking my language. Ah, but all right, I wanna get to another question. So we
Yep.
talked about it a little bit just in the naturalness of our conversation, but I wanna ask you more specifically. You said you had to kinda overcome fear, and we just talked about that, but what else did you have to overcome to really rise into being a confident business owner? And you're speaking and empowering other people too, so it's not just
Yeah.
about being a business owner, but you're turning this into, like, an empowerment movement of your own.
Yeah.
So, what's another thing you had to overcome to become this?
All the things that I didn't know that I didn't know. And so there are all of the tactical things of business ownership, and I didn't know that. I had the
Mhm.
passion, but I didn't know, like, okay, how do I file taxes? And am I a corporation or an LLC? Or what even are those things? I don't even know what LLC stands for. Like, so I had to overcome a lot of the things that I didn't know that I didn't know. And it is a lot. And this is not to scare anyone from doing it because you can absolutely do it. But
Absolutely.
there were a lot of hurdles there, and they're just really approaching this as a business versus a hobby. And I think that's the difference is people can be speakers and they can do those things. And a lot of times we might approach it as, oh my gosh, I love this, but it's a hobby almost, right? Versus an actual business with a strategy and specific goals and all of those things. So that was a big one for me to overcome. That plus there's another one, this thing called social media. It's like
I
just
understand.
figuring out all of the different platforms and which one made the most sense for me and what are those circle things on Instagram. And it's so really those things. And so the way that I overcame those was recognizing really quickly that was not my wheelhouse. And I found people who were the experts and I had them really support me because it was going to take me 6 years to figure out how to post a reel. I might as well find someone who can either teach me or do it for me. And so that's how I overcame those things was just finding the experts.
I think that's a really powerful lesson too for the listeners to pick up because I learned that too. I'm a highly
Yeah.
creative person and I pick up those things kind of fast because I enjoy the artistic side of it. However, there's another side to it too, is that when you become a business owner, especially when you're a solopreneur,
Yeah.
you should not be doing all the tasks. You need to
Everything.
be CEO, you need to be business manager, you need to be doing the higher level functional things that
Right.
run the business and execute the business.
That's
And
right.
I got lost in that social media trap for a while too. I was like, I'm spending like 10 hours a week and now I have help. So,
Right. Exactly. And for me, it was all of those things plus the fact that I have no patience. And so if
did
I
you
try
throw a
something,
laptop? I want to know.
I threw many things. I cried a lot. But what it does, especially for those of us who already are struggling with feeling like we can actually do this, struggling in the areas that are not your jam, that you're not passionate about, or it's just harder for you, it doesn't do much for your self esteem and it doesn't do much to continue to have that fire within you. So, getting somebody else to help me with my brand and all the things that I did, it was such a boost. It was an emotional boost, and it just really made me feel like, wow, this is actually happening versus me trying to use like a Google template.
Yes,
I
just
couldn't do that.
move the hat to the side. There's
Yeah,
something else that you said too. I mean, a lot of my work focuses on helping people reach their peak potential. I get so jazzed about that.
yeah,
And I think there's a myth that we have to work on our weaknesses. I see so many people overcommit to fixing quote unquote what's wrong with them rather than leaning into what's right with them, their
yep,
strengths, their passions, their talents
yep.
and gifts. Like, what if instead we played in our strengths? And I am just so grateful you brought that up because I love to reinforce that message every single time that I get a chance to.
Yeah, yeah, and this is also part of my journey is I'm at a place right now where I am being led by my business. I'm not leading it. And what I mean by that is I am open to opportunities that I maybe otherwise would not have been if I was really strict in terms of my business plan. And what has happened as a result of that is I'm fine tuning my passion, I guess. And it's really leading me. That's why I ended up doing more keynote speaking and things like developing a leadership program suite now. And those are things that it wasn't even on the table 2 years ago.
Right.
But because of the fact that I said, you know what, I have led my career for 20 years. I've done all the things, I checked all the boxes. I'm not doing that. I'm like ripping up the list and I'm just like tossing it. And I'm going to just go with the things that feel good and makes me really excited. And that's really kind of what happened and why I started doing more speaking and doing coaching now. I never thought that I would have been a coach of anything but soccer. And,
Hey, I coach soccer too.
seriously, yeah, like I just never thought that I would be those things, but it's the stuff that really bring me joy. And it's the stuff that I'm seeing that's really actually making an impact on people and their lives, which, as you know, there's just nothing like it.
Yeah, yeah, it's absolutely incredible. It feels like the gift after experiencing the pain and suffering in a sense. I know it's just corporate life and things like that, but
Yeah,
I'm 20 years into and I've got my horror stories and like
yeah,
now being able
yeah,
to learn and rise above all those experiences and now help
yeah,
others do it. There's no other feeling like it
yeah,
in the world. It's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. And it's hard for sure. It definitely can be tough.
it's natural leading down to, and we've also kind of uncovered it a little bit, but I'd
Uh-huh.
love to hear like another lesson learned or like a current aha that's really up for you right now.
I would say lesson learned or current aha. Well, the current two big ahas I've had, I would say, in the last couple of months. The first one is confidence is everything. If you really feel it inside of just deep down in your belly, in your soul, then it just does some just amazing things for you. And two of the things that I was struggling with in terms of confidence, not only just the all the imposter stuff, but one thing was my weight. And the other thing, believe it or not, was I started feeling like I missed the boat. So I'm going to be 45 in a couple of weeks. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, what am I doing? What's happening here? But I'm recognizing that being a woman who is in her mid 40s, I just bring so much to the table. I have so much value. I have so much to share. I have so much to learn. And it's just really just beginning for me. And then being a woman who has struggled with her weight, I'm starting to recognize that it's not so much about the weight, it's about the strength in my body and the strength in my soul, and showing other women, including my daughters, I have two of them, that your beauty is just so much more than the size pants you wear, right? Which, by the way, is a size 14. But
Think we're like soul sisters or something because I'm 44. I'm like in between a 12 and a 14.
yeah. So
It's
those are my
funny.
aha moments when I'm finally at the almost age of 45, looking at myself in the mirror and thinking, wow, you're pretty gorgeous there, girl. And it
I
took a long
love
time to
that.
get it took a long time to get there.
It's such an important message too for our listeners out there is that we spend so much time. We talked a little bit earlier about the inner critic and how mean she
Yeah.
can be. I don't
Yeah.
know if guys got an inner critic like that, but I know us women, it is a mean girl.
It's like Mean Girl, High School. Yes, all the way.
And like when you were saying now I'm 44 also, I've had a 20-year career. I've struggled with fluctuating in sizes and stuff. And what I've
Yep.
realized too, along with you, is like that's not the part that defines me. The part that defines me is my soul, is my strength, is my character, is my
Yep.
intention, is my
Exactly.
dreams. Those are the things that define me. And so,
Yeah.
listeners, listen to Therese and my story and just know that if you are struggling right now, that you have the ability to like flip the script and give
Yep.
yourself a different inner
Absolutely.
voice because there is so much that you can accomplish when that voice changes. Therese was saying, like, confidence is everything. And that's not
Yeah.
cockiness, that's confidence because you were born worthy. You were born a queen. And just like, anyway, I'm getting all fired up
I'm
right
like,
now.
preach on,
Like,
Becca.
let's go.
Yes. But it's true. And the other thing that I learned is I'm the only one that's seeing all these things that's wrong with me. And nobody else
Ain't
is.
that the
You know, I
truth?
get on this yeah, I get on a stage and I'm thinking about, oh my gosh, my feet are sweaty. I've got this pimple. Oh my gosh, like stomach's bulging over these pants. I probably shouldn't have worn them. And all these things are going through my head. And then I get off stage and I'm met with people that say, this is the first time I've actually heard someone speak that makes me feel like I'm being seen.
I love that you just said being seen because that's what people really they want to be
Yeah,
heard, they want to be seen, they want to feel
yeah,
like they matter. So
exactly.
this is a natural place to ask the next question because I think it's just going to roll off your tongue. Why are you passionate about this work?
I'm passionate about this work because I struggled for so long, and I know right now that there's so many people, but women specifically, who are struggling. They're in executive positions, they are in positions of leadership, whether it's at home leading a home or in the corporate world, and they're struggling to believe that they deserve or they belong. And yes, I work with organizations in terms of process and change management, but it all comes down to leadership. And a lot of times, especially in healthcare, your leaders are women and they are
Mhm.
having a really hard time and they're struggling. And so I'm passionate about this because number one, I want them to know that, hey, you're not the only person. And the second thing is, it's actually pretty common what you're going through. And the last thing is, there's someone who wants to help you, that believes in you and wants to see you successful. And I wish I had someone like that.
Yeah, that gives me the goosebumps because I think where my head's going right now is this is just real talk. It's real
Yeah.
talk. Stripped down. This is what's going on under the covers. You think you're alone and struggling? or in maybe so many. I want to digress for 1 second because it goes on the leadership. I've been a leader for years too in Fortune 500. And what I can tell you is women leaders are freaking tired, and
Yeah.
they are also struggling with all the same things. Like, most women leaders come across very powerful and sometimes they're intimidating and not like unapproachable, but they're like the powerhouse. I know I can, when I'm in power mode, I'm like, go, go, go. And people are
Yeah.
like, oh, we're just going to let Becca go and we'll approach her later. But what I want to say is that underneath it all, it is all of those things. We are, many times there hasn't been the proper support in place. Many times the inner critic is playing in the head. Many
Yep.
times we are just doing our best to do our best. And
Yep.
I love what you are saying because I just think that there's a truth to it. And I would love for you to share a little bit more. I'm loving this real talk. So you can just say whatever feels natural, but how can someone use this perspective of confidence is everything, allowing themselves to be vulnerable and get support to empower their lives? Like, what would you recommend to a listener?
Well, the first thing always is just believe that exactly who you are is exactly what is needed. You don't need to change. I mean, yes, we can improve. There's self improvement, there's books, there's all these fun things, yoga, and all this other stuff. But exactly who you are is exactly what is needed, not just in your organization, not just at home, but in this world. You were made exactly the way you were supposed to be, and you're exactly what is needed. And just remember that and always say that, even on those days where you're struggling, even when you get it wrong, even when you make a big mistake, even if you're like, gosh, my life is just not where I want it to be, just remember that you're exactly what you need, and just always give yourself that message. And I promise you, because it's something that I say to myself every morning out loud, I have to say it because I have to hear it. And because I've been saying so many negative things to myself for so long. And so I'm really trying to change that message. And what you say, you hear. And so say that out loud, and just exactly who I am is what is needed. And that's really the first big step. And now, based on what your struggles are, right? Because I don't know everybody's struggles, but based on what your struggles are, you get the help that you need. So it could be like me, where I need people to show me how to do reels or whatever. Or it also could be like me, where I realize that I have been carrying along a lot of baggage, childhood baggage and trauma and all of those things for so many years. And I actually needed to find a therapist to help me work through those
Mhm.
and give me tools that I needed because I couldn't do it on my own. So recognize that there are resources out there to help you, and take advantage of those resources,
I love
whatever that
that.
struggle is.
I love that so much because, especially, I mean, the entire message, I'm like, hell yes, but winding down on resources because I know as a quote unquote independent woman, I thought I
Mhm.
needed to like bear it all on my own. I
Yeah.
had to figure it out. I also became the self help junkie that self helped herself into a downward spiral. So
Yep.
there is a truth to what you're saying too, where you are exactly what you need,
Hmm.
and that your route to self reflection shouldn't be self punishment. It should be self elevation.
Yep.
Right. And
Yep.
that is what I'm really getting from what you said is like, you don't have to trip down the rabbit hole, but you can lean into yourself and lean into the resources that are going to help you become even more of who you are.
Yep, and just be mindful of the messages that you're allowing in and that
Mm,
you're also giving out. Just be really mindful of that, because a lot of those messages that we allow in are the things that are leading to a lot of things. And you talk about this, right? Burnout. Women experience burnout at a way higher rate than their
yes.
male counterparts, right? And
Mhm.
that's in part due to the messaging that we allow in. And we all know the messaging, right? Like you said, I'm an independent woman. And what does that look like? Well, I make six figures a year. My house is amazing. There's never dirty dishes. I make everything from scratch, gluten free. I read my kids' bedtime
Hilarious.
stories. I am like the best wife and the best mom. And I'm doing it all, by the way, as a size 4, because I also work out 3 times a day and I have impeccable skin. I don't need makeup. And these are all these messages, and it's funny, but it's really not, because a lot of women
It's
are trying
stressful.
to live up to these standards,
Yes.
and it's leading to burnout, it's leading to depression, and it's leading to a lot of things. And the messaging, when I talk about messaging that you're sending out, there are your girls, if you have daughters, if you have nieces or whatever, you're giving them that message, whether it's intentional or not. And so now it just becomes this generational thing and it's
Yes.
hard to
Oh,
stop. And so just be mindful of the messages that you allow in and the messages that you're giving out, whether or not it's intentional,
that
for sure.
is absolutely incredible. And I could rip a whole nother at least a half an hour on
Yeah.
generational, but I'm going to pause because we are at the bottom of the 30 minutes. And listeners, I hope you enjoyed having Therese on as a guest as much as I did. And if you or your organization is in need of a keynote speaker and you feel inspired by what she says, we will provide all of her information. She'll provide it to you in just a minute in the show notes. And also, I hope that you get a chance to follow her and continue to be inspired by her thoughts and wisdom. So, Therese, I'm going to turn it over to you to share how the listeners can follow you, find you, and all that good stuff.
Awesome. Okay, so I am, as you know, I'm challenged with social media. So I am on LinkedIn, just my name, Therese Gopaul Robinson. That's where you can find me. And also on Instagram, the same thing, just my name, just Therese Gopaul Robinson. Or you can just reach out to me on my website, theresegr.com. That's TheRese.com. And you can schedule some time with me. I'd love to chat and just talk through some of the struggles that you might be having. And I'm here always if anybody ever wants to talk or just to start following each other and building a relationship.
That is awesome. Well, I know I feel empowered by this conversation. Therese, thank you so much for coming
Thank you
on the
so much,
show.
Becca. No, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much, Becca. Really, this was great. Thank you. You're doing
Awesome.
wonderful things.
Oh, thank you.